I'm the creation of the Lord.
What it's about. But I didn't have a very, very good story before Islam. Again, I was born to Haitian immigrant parents. Alhamdulillah, unfortunately, I've never met my father. Never. My mother sent me to live with family members in Haiti. I know for a lot of people from West Africa, that's a common trend. You send your children to go live with relatives. So they sent me to live with some relatives in Haiti at a very young age, even before I could remember. So much so, as I was growing up, I actually thought the family I was staying with was my actual family. So they tell me one day, I turned about 4 years old, and they tell me, you're going back to New York with your mother. I said, stop it, come on, you're joking. You're my parents, I know that. You're my mom, you're my dad. No. You have a family in New York. So then they go, they ship me on a plane. My memories of Haiti are very, 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 I don't have many memories of it. It was a very young age. I remember a couple of things going to school there, but nothing much. So I get to New York, and I meet this woman who's my mother, and she's like a complete stranger to me. I'm like, who are you? She's like, I'm your mother. I'm like, I don't know you. So we start to develop a relationship. I grew up in New York City, Brooklyn, New York. But where I'm from, you can't really claim Brooklyn unless you know Brooklyn. So if I went back there now and told them I'm from Brooklyn, they'd ask me where, I'd name some streets, and they'd beat me up. So they wouldn't accept me. So I'm going to claim that I'm from Queens, New York, because that's the area that I know best. Moving forward. I grew up in a normal childhood. I was growing up under the custody of my mother and my stepfather. Growing up, I didn't know anything about Islam. I think the first experience I had with religion, and subhanAllah, you know, sometimes people take these things lightly. What you tell a child can impact them and can corrupt their nature. Our Prophet ﷺ said that every child is born on natural fitr. They know la ilaha illallah until somebody in their family, their parents, makes them a Jew or Christian. And I can actually recall the day where I was moved away from that natural fitr. It was getting around the time I wanted to get some toys. And they said, we're going to get the toys for you, but at a particular date. So they got the toys for me. When I finally got the toys, I was so happy. I said, oh, thank God, thank God. They said, no, thank Santa Claus. That's what they're teaching your kids on TV right now. That's what they're teaching them in school. Really confused. Santa Claus, who's that? And it starts to go downhill from there. My family is Roman Catholic Christian. That's their belief. I went to school in New York. Average kid, you know, spoiled, ungrateful, didn't appreciate his parents. They did a lot for me. I took them through a lot. As I was growing up, they started, by the time I reached maybe middle school, we moved to Queens, they started to send me to a Catholic school. Not every day, it was like an after-school program, and they started to teach. I was pretty devout then. I had some questions that the pastor couldn't really answer. After a while, I kind of strayed away from it after the long little bit. On the way to high school, I had my first encounter with Islam. My first year of high school, I went to a high school, I was supposed to get on a bus and get lost. And I'm really scared. And I don't know how to get back home. And lo and behold, the first person that steers me in the right direction is a Muslim. And I could recognize he was a Muslim. I looked and I said, oh, he's one of those people. And he told me how to get home. Alhamdulillah, I made it home. Years later, my first study of Islam actually came in a public school. My teacher was Mr. Smith. He was teaching global studies. And he was teaching about world religions. So he talked to us about Christianity, about Judaism. He talked to us about Islam. I was blown away. I was like, man, they taught me one thing my whole life. I didn't know, really? The Jews believe this, and Muslims, oh, that's what they believe. And I went home and I shared it with my mother. I wanted to share it with my mother. I go in and tell Mom, Mom, I've just learned something really new. Look, you know, there are people who kind of believe what we believe. Look, the Jews believe this, and the Muslims believe this, but they don't believe in Jesus. She said, what kind of devil religion is this? They don't believe in Jesus. Mom, relax. That was her reaction. Moving forward, puberty started creeping around the corner. And as puberty came, that's when my life started going really downhill. I lived in New York. I was part of what's called the hip-hop generation. The kids that had their pants hanging under their behinds, and that was what I was into. Started getting caught up with the wrong crowd. Alhamdulillah, I was a very a disrespectful child. My parents are from overseas, so they didn't play that, all that back talk that mom's gonna hit you. So even to the day, I'm scared of my mother. I don't mess with mom. But I started to get myself into a whole lot of trouble. My mother used to warn me, like, you don't want to do that. Eventually, it led to problems with the law. And then, at the age of 17 years old, I get arrested for the first time. I didn't want to call my mother. The people that called my mother bailed me out, and subhanAllah. From there, it just went downhill from there. High school didn't go too well. Dropped out of high school, started hanging out with the fellas. Getting into a whole bunch of things that I had no business getting into. I don't have to go into the details. By the time I was 19, I've been arrested maybe 3, 4, 5 times. Constant problems with the law, constant problems with the law, constant problems with the law. My relationship with my parents was terrible. I took them through a lot. To this day, I'm really shy to talk to my mother on the phone. I feel bad. It started to culminate in 1998. Then in 1998, I was going back and forth to Virginia, again, doing a whole lot of things that I had no business doing at the time. It led to me being arrested again. This time, I didn't call them. This time I was facing 100 years inside the cell. I didn't think I was ever getting out. Strange thing is though, I'm rolling with the crew. We're caught. And I felt a sense of relief for some reason. I don't know why. Here it is, I'm facing 100 years. That's what you're telling me. We're going to be 100. We're going to keep you here forever. And I'm there with the crew. All these guys are panicking. And me, subhanAllah, I feel a sense of calm, like something good's going to happen here. I just have a feeling. I go through trial, go in front of the judge sentences me. So you're going to be here for a while. Incarcerates me. Now become state property. It was 6 months before pre-trial, and this was on the eastern shore of Maryland. I was on my way to Virginia, but unfortunately there was a detour there. I get stopped, pulled over, arrested, and for 6 months before I get sentenced, I'm in a housing unit with a bunch of different characters. Amongst them were some Muslims. I remember there was one who wasn't too much on his deen. There was another one, he was a little more wishy-washy, and there was one more, he was really devout. And he was the guy who was in the cell. One day, when I was there, I heard one of them give me da'wah to another individual. And he was telling him about Isa ibn Maryam. At the time, I don't know the terminology, I just know he's telling them something, and he's saying, Jesus is he's the messenger of Allah. He's not the son of God. And the guy is really, I don't want to hear that, I don't want to hear that, Something compelled me to get out of my bed and say, you should listen to him. This guy, he's telling you something that's good for you. He said, well, you're a Muslim? I said, no, I'm not a Muslim, but you should listen to him. And it kind of lit a spark. As the time goes by, times go by, another Muslim comes. This guy's real devout. He pray every day. They even held a mock Jumu'ah service right there in the chair block, right there on the cell. They're there, the 3 of them, they had Jumu'ah, and surprised. Never saw anything like that before. But even then, I just looked at myself like, nah, I'm not good enough to be a Muslim. Muslims are good people. I'm a terrible person. Look at me. The brother that was really devout, one day he was accused of something really heinous. And everybody lost respect for him. And I looked, I said, wow. If what they're saying about this guy is true, man, this must be a really wonderful religion to make such a terrible. I see this guy. I'm not getting up out of my, at the time I'm thinking, I'm not getting up at 5 in the morning to go pray about my head. No. There's got to be something about this religion. So I started to ask questions. There was another brother there. He was kind of making his way back. He, he's Muslim, but he, for whatever reason, and he was there and he was trying to read at the time Surah Al-Fatiha. I didn't know what it was. So I started asking him, I said, what is this? He said, oh, this is the Fatiha. And he started to explain it to me. This was at night. I must have asked him so many questions about Islam. The guy didn't get any sleep. He said, man, Steve, you have so many questions. You know what? I got you becoming a Muslim. You'd be surprised. The whole time, I'm thinking, I'm just not good enough to be a Muslim. And here it is, there's a Muslim telling me that I'm good enough to be a Muslim. So I started to study. I studied and I studied and I studied and I studied. I said, no, I'm not going to do this just arbitrarily. I want to make sure this is right. After I was sentenced, they moved me to the diagnostics building in Baltimore. So I asked them for a Quran. I said, I want to study the Quran. The guy said, we don't have any more of those, but we have a Bible. He was the chaplain. So he gave me a Bible. So I said, okay. So I started studying the Bible, but I was looking at it from a perspective of what I had learned from the Muslims. So I was looking for the truth. And I studied and I studied. That was probably the first time I've ever read the Bible. I never read the Bible before. As I got to the end, I was convinced, I want to be a Muslim. This is the truth. Weeks later, the chaplain comes and gives me a Quran. I opened it up. I'm reading the translation. I couldn't read Quran at the time. As I'm reading through the translation of the Quran, the truth is there. The truth is there. It's touching. I have to do this. They had an indoor Jumu'ah service, and I signed up on the list. And I was convinced I'm going to take my shahada. One week goes by, they didn't call me. The next week they called me. I go to a Jumu'ah service in there. I listen, and I'm convinced I'm going to become a Muslim. The brother there at the time, his Arabic wasn't very good. I didn't know. So I go, he's trying to get me to say the words. I couldn't say it. It was difficult for me. So he said, just say it in English. So I said it in English. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Thus, I took my shahada. This was 6 months into the sentence. As I was in there, now it was time to start learning. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is truly merciful. I can remember the first time I tried to pray, call the IBAN. I had a piece of paper with some transliteration. Every time I'm praying, I'm looking at the paper, trying to find the business. There's nobody there. I'm doing the best that I can. This is how I used to pray. Eventually, they moved me from this area to the Jessup area. In Jessup, there were a lot of brothers there. When I got to Jessup, a brother gave me a book of hadith. That was my first encounter with the Sunnah. He said, read this. As I started to learn, I was invited by another brother, maybe weeks later. He said, I want you to come to Arabic class. I said, Arabic class? And I thought the same thing that most people think when they're told that they'll do Arabic class. I thought I couldn't do it. So no way I can do this. How am I going to do this? I'm not an Arab, I don't speak Arabic. As I'm there with the brother, I go and I take my first Arabic class. Very difficult. Everybody's ahead of me. One day I'm in the kitchen, there's a brother, he's reciting. At the time, it turns out, I didn't know what it was, now I know he's reciting Surah Al-Muzammil. Believe it or not, even in prison, this brother recited this so beautifully. I said, where did you learn from? He said, well, we had an institution, there were people that used to come in and taught us from the outside. He said, just go to Arabic class, eventually you'll learn. I went, it was really difficult, I couldn't learn. I wasn't getting. By December, Ramadan had come in. And I experienced my first Ramadan. Very short. Around this time, Salat was 4:45, it was iftar time. And heading towards the last 10 nights, the brother told me that there's something called Laylatul Qadr. I said, what's that? He said, Laylatul Qadr is a time you make dua and you ask Allah for anything that you want. But you got to catch it in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. That's what I do. Every night I get up and pray, get up and pray, get up and pray. In a world where there's no hope, I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach me how to recite the Quran in prison. Four months later, after Ramadan, a brother comes to our cell block. This brother is one of my teachers. Turns out, I come to find out later, this brother was a student of Sheikh Ibrahim al-Akhdar, if you're familiar with him, from Ibrahim al-Akhdar. He's from, I think, Medina, Makkah. Well-known reciter. It turns out he was in the 90s, he was teaching people tajweed of Quran. And he had a lot of students on the outside, and they were actually going on the inside teaching people. So it just so happens that one of his students taught me. For day after day, I just followed this brother, he just teach me, little by little, little by little, little by little, little by little. Within 4 months, I knew how to read the Quran. They had a little point system where they would give you a big mushaf if you finish reciting or if you memorize the last 10 surahs of the Quran with tajweed. So I did that. In there, the brother told me that eventually you're going to have to start teaching people. So on the inside, I started teaching people. I was in there for 3 years and 10 months. Within 3 years and 10 months, I had memorized 80% of Juz' Amma. Fast forward, eventually it was time for me to leave. On September 25th, 2002, I was released. I made my way into society, and I was trying to fit in. While I was in there, I learned a lot of lessons. I saw a lot of people go in and out, in and out, in and out. They call it the revolving door. I said, man, what? I wish I could get out. You guys keep coming back. Turns out the common denominator is that a lot of these guys would go back to whatever they were doing, and they get caught back up. So I had my mind made up. When I come out, I'm not going back, inshallah. No way. So when I got out, the first thing I did, I took residence in Baltimore, Maryland. Because I figured, well, in New York, I know haram, 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 the club's haram, haram. In Baltimore, the only thing I know is Muslims. So I figured out where all the masajid were. I just spent a lot of time around the Muslims. The first few years out was extremely rough. When I came out first, I was staying with one brother. Stayed with him for a couple of months. He was practicing a particular brand of Islam, and I didn't quite agree with that. So he told me to leave. And as I left out, I didn't know where I was going to go, but I was too proud to ask for help. So I left out. And I ran into a brother that I knew from the inside, and he told me he had a place for me. Did he have a place for me? He put me in what they call in Baltimore a condominium. It's a house full of drug addicts. And as I go in there, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. A woman in there told me, she walked up to me, she said, you know what? I don't know who you are, but you don't belong in here. No way, you don't belong in here. You shouldn't be here. The very next morning, as I'm coming out of there, I see a Muslim brother. I also knew. We went to the masjid. Alhamdulillah, I found myself a place to stay. Left out of there. From the span of 2003 to 2005, things were very rough. At one point, I found myself living on maybe $50 a month. Somehow trying to make it work. Couldn't find steady work. The only thing I could do was come to the masjid and pray. At one point, a brother asked me to start volunteering teaching people how to recite Quran. So I started to do that. I started getting experience teaching people on a volunteer basis every weekend. I teach. Finally, I moved to the Bueno community in Baltimore. I had a friend there. When I moved there, again, work was scarce. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just recently got married. Very difficult. Started working in the construction field. Wasn't very good at it. Then one day, a brother that knew me from the masjid recommended me to a brother and said, you're about to open up a school. This guy would be a pretty good teacher for you. So I got a part-time job teaching children in a Muslim school called New Medina Academy in Baltimore. So I started to teach. As I progressed, the brother who had hired me, he said that he felt that it'd be good to memorize the Quran. I didn't think I could do it. So he brought me to Masjid al-Rahmah in Baltimore. I sat with Qari Zahid and Qari Abid, and we started to memorize Quran. And for people who just now started to memorize Quran, at first it's never easy. It's difficult at first. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you persevere, He makes it easy for you. First assignment I had was rough, difficult, but I didn't want to give up. So I hung in there, and hung in there, and hung in there, hung in there. SubhanAllah. I got Juz Tabarak memorized. By then I'd already memorized Juz, alhamdulillah. As time progressed, the brother heard about a program here at PGMA that was being started at the time by Imam Kareem Abu Zayd. And he wanted to enroll his kids. He said, okay, I want you to go in there and try to get in as a student, and maybe you can assist the Imam there. So we went with Sheikh Kareem. I asked him. He said, I don't know you, so we'll give you a trial run in the summertime. Summertime came. I came here. I was memorizing Quran. I was working with Sheikh Kareem. Sheikh Kareem he said, okay, we want you here on a regular basis. Come back in September. September came. Sheikh Kareem he started the Hifz school. I was just an assistant. He brought in Sheikh Hussain. Sheikh Hussain was here. He was teaching the children. I was training underneath Sheikh Hussain. Alhamdulillah, it was a good experience. One day, Imam Kareem came to me and told me that he was looking for somebody to take over the program. So I said, oh, I know a brother. He's in Baltimore. He's a Hafiz. I can go get him for you. He's from Egypt. He said, okay, go get him. I went, I spoke to the brother. He met with Sheikh Kareem. Sheikh Kareem didn't, for some reason, it didn't work out. So I called him and I said, Sheikh, I know somebody else. I can bring somebody else for you. He said, no, I don't want anybody else. I want you to do it. I said, me? Who am I to do? What am I going to do? He said, you can run this program. I said, I don't think so. He said, you can do it. Time went by. I trained with Sheikh Hussain for 1 year, Sheikh Kareem. Eventually, Sheikh Hussain left. And the second year, I started to run the program. You can't imagine what it's like to be in a situation where you're at the very, very, very bottom of the society. And you don't think much of yourself. And you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a way out for you. This whole time, I had no idea. When I hit the road with the fellas, I had no idea where I was going to end up. There were times in my life I hated myself and I felt like I didn't want to live. I didn't have a purpose in life. A couple of times, subhanAllah, I was this close to death. And I would have died of nothing. And been in that fire of hell. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had other plans for me. This is my story. Again, I tried to leave out the gory details. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. It's amazing. You always amaze me, brother, and I'm glad that you submitted to Allah to be who you are. I came to this community about a long time ago, about 2007, I think it was, and I never forgot you. When I walked into this door back here, I remember, and it's still in my mind today, to let you know how much I appreciate you. I came in and you was standing up on this side, and I think Farouk, I didn't know his name at the time, standing up on that side, and I just saw children just running around reciting. I didn't know Arabic at the time. I've been a Muslim a while, but I didn't know Arabic. But I couldn't think of nothing but a brother, Prophet Ibrahim, because I was like, this tall brother, children were circling around you. This brother was sitting over there, and they were just reciting. And I was totally amazed. So, you know, what really is a comment to you on it. Thank you for staying in there, brother, because you've always been an inspiration. To see you from me first meeting you, to see you now, sharing your story, brother. Inspiration. Inspiration. I've even, you know, what amazes me, when I first came here, I've seen young folks learning. And then the last Ramadan, they led us. So may Allah keep you blessed, may Allah keep you blessed, brother. And just do what you do. I really appreciate you.
Any other questions?
Your story is very, emotional. My question is, what do you think is the challenge for all the people, that are in your position, we're in your position, that wants to convert to Islam, in respect to resources that are available, to teach them like you were taught?
I think it's a dual responsibility. It's a responsibility on the person who he became a Muslim, because ignorance is not an excuse. You're obligated to learn about your deen. So it's first upon the person who, he's the Muslim, to seek the information. They say, look the word in Arabic for a student. One of the words for student in Arabic is talib. A talib is a seeker. The knowledge shouldn't come seek you, you have to go seek it. But at the same time, it has to come from the community to try to encourage the people to want to learn. So it's on both ends. It's on the person to want it, and it's on the community to support it. That's my answer. 1 second. Sister sent the question. I did do the sister's question first. It says, Assalamu alaikum. What advice would you give to your non-Muslim brother, 20-something, that are searching for the truth? Easy advice. Ask Allah and Allah will guide you. That's the answer. Ask Allah to guide you and He'll guide you. Ask Allah, ask Allah, ask Allah. And when the truth comes, don't reject it. Next.
Assalamu alaikum. And it was surprised a little bit. Being Muslim for all our lives, and we have certain difficulty of even how to pronounce certain type of word in the Quran. So what advice you give to everybody how to learn the real pronunciation of the Quran?
You have one of 3 resources that people use. I see from my experience that people use. One is books. Another one is tapes. Another one is a live person, a teacher. All 3 are useful, but here's the thing. A book can tell you what to do. A tape can tell you what it sounds like, but only a teacher can tell you if you're doing it right. The best thing advice I can find a teacher. You have to have a teacher. You have to have a human, another individual to tell you whether you're doing it right or wrong. Because you can think in your mind, I'm saying it right, I'm saying it right, I'm saying it right, but you can't correct yourself. The best thing is to find a teacher.
Assalamu alaikum.
What is your relationship now with your parents?
It's much better, alhamdulillah. Stop getting myself in trouble. I'm a father now. Like I said, really, wallahi, I hear the cases about children in Muslim communities who are going around disrespecting their parents. The advice I would give them, please stop. You're going to regret it for the rest of your life. To this day, I'm 34 years old. I feel bad to my mother based on what I did in the past.
Considering you are joining to Islam, what is the biggest achievement you made all your life?
Saying La ilaha illallah and not looking back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Allahu a'lam. I'm not saying that, but that's the biggest achievement. Saying La ilaha illallah and trying my best to stand firm on it and not going back. I feel privileged and blessed to be a Muslim. There's times where I'm standing behind the Imam. Sometimes I'm the Imam. And it seems surreal. I'm like, wow, I'm really here praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm a Muslim. Sometimes it feels like I'm in a dream. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I have no idea. But alhamdulillah, it happened. I don't know. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan for coming to present to us today, for us today here. Brother, we have brothers and sisters who are taking the Shahada here, some of whom who took it over the years. What advice would you give the masjid to provide support to them? Because right now we've gotten some letters from brothers who used to come here.
Since I've come to Tawheed and I've been about the companions and the Salaf and everyone else, I know who I am. I'm the creation of Allah.